Ollie, where are we going today?
I, Oliver Norville Hardy, am going out.
And I, Stan Laurel, am going with you. If I'm with you, you're with me, and we will never be individually.
You're with me and I'm with you, so one together is two.
If we're with us, then we're a we, and we are both of us necessarily.
We are both our very own, and both is never alone.
If I'm with you, and you're with me, then we will never be individually. You're with me, and I'm with you, so one, two.
Welcome to the Playhouse. I'm Uncle Paul. Well, we started today's episode with the theme song, One Together is Two. And that's created by Larry Harmon and is known as another Laurel and Hardy theme. And that's the theme of the Playhouse episode today. But first, time for our very special hellos. Hello to RTO Teletape, Borny, Joe Mayo, Matthew Street, Dave Sundstrom, the Sticker Mania family, Andy and Tom of Two Legs, Jennifer, Barbara, Jerome Luby, Perry Masters, Bungalow Ron of Creepy Classics, Joel Swagman Reviews, Peyton. Now, if you'd like a special hello, I'd like to dedicate it to someone special in your life, please just leave it in the comments below and we'll say hello in a future episode. And that's our very special hellos for today. Well, it's time to open the storybook. We always have something very special in the Playhouse, but today it really is to us. Well, next to the Beatles, of course, being extremely influential in my life, in music, but also on every other aspect, culturally and things. Well, Laurel and Hardy were also like a Beatles to me. I don't remember a time in my life that I was not watching or knowing of Laurel and Hardy. Now, Arthur Stanley Jefferson and Norville Hardy teamed up in 1927, and they made 107 films for mainly the Hal Roach Studios. Now for me, besides watching Laurel and Hardy on TV, the first thing that really got me was this book called Mr. Laurel and Mr. Hardy, a biography by John McCabe. This has been printed several times throughout the decades. And this has a foreword by legendary national treasure Dick Van Dyke. Coincidentally, also, in 1969, Dick Van Dyke made a very underrated film called The Comic. If you haven't seen The Comic, I highly recommend it. Again, starring Dick Van Dyke, Michelle Lee, and Mickey Rooney. This is a Carl Reiner film, by the way. Legendary Carl Reiner. Now, I got this magazine. This was printed in 1976 on the history of Laurel and Hardy. Now again, in those days, there were no internet or anything, so you couldn't Google things. This is the way that you learned about people that you liked. So this magazine showed me that there was memorabilia, as they say, or collectibles, based on Laurel and Hardy. And that was amazing to me. There's another page here. I'm going to show you. Now our story continues. In 1946, an executive at Capitol Records named Alan Livingston. Yes, that Alan Livingston, Playhouse members. But that story relating to the Beatles is for a very near Playhouse episode. Now, Alan Livingston created Bozo the Clown for Capitol Records. But back then, again, this was 1946, Bozo wasn't what you think of now as Bozo the Clown. He was just used as a Capitol record clown. He made records. But he Bozo approved all other 78 records that Capitol Records was putting out. So, other children's records. So you wanted that Bozo approved. Now we know also the Beatles did something in 1966 that was definitely not Bozo approved. But again, that story is in our next episode. Now in 1956, business entrepreneur Larry Harmon bought the rights to Bozo the Clown that we all know and love. And he changed him into, again, our Bozo. I put Bozo on television programs. He had his own cartoon series. And again, is worldly known to this day. Now, Larry Harmon also, in the early 1960s, bought the rights to Laurel and Hardy. Now, back to our magazine. Now, inside this magazine, which again had all Laurel and Hardy collectibles that I never knew existed, but inside the actual magazine, it said that if you wrote to Larry Harmon, he would tell you how to get the items. And there's an address here, Larry Harmon Pictures Corporation. I'm going to read this right to you. Collectors, if you can't find some of the Laurel and Hardy collectibles shown here in your own area, you could write to Larry Harmon, and he'll be glad to tell you how you can get them. Simply address your letters to, and then it said, be sure to put a stamped self-addressed envelope with your inquiries. Now, I admit, I'm 13 years old when I did this. I'm not sure if I gave Larry Harmon a self-addressed stamped envelope. But I never heard from Larry Harmon. And I think that must have scarred Uncle Paul so much that I was on a mission then to find all the items that were pictured in this magazine. So we're going to first show you some of those, like we just saw the Laurel and Hardy fuzzy felt game at the supermarket, which was in the magazine. And they had some coloring books and the sheet set. And obviously, actually in the magazine, there was a drawing of the sheet set. I don't think they could get it. But the Playhouse has the original sheet set. Now, fast forward to March of 1993. Then I wrote to Larry Harmon in 1973 asking him where I could get the Laurel and Hardy items that were in the magazine and now, of course, on the Playhouse couch. Well, fortunately, I got to meet Larry Harmon again in March of 1993. And we're going to show you that picture. There I am with Larry Harmon. Very nice man. Had a good time. But of course, I joked with him that I had written to him in 1973 or 4. And I said, I never heard back from you. So it was, we had a good joke about that. But so he signed this to me, this game here, to my good friend Paul. Said this was March 9th, 1993. And he signed this little plastic advertising Laurel and Hardy cartoon thing that I have, and one of my VHS tapes. Now, a lot of originally, Larry Harmon produced the Laurel and Hardy cartoons, and they were done by Studio Hanna-Barbera, which again, all Playhouse members know all about Hanna-Barbera, along with the Walper Studios. But he owned the likeness. There were a lot of, we know, there were a lot of legalities and court battles over the years between the likeness of Laurel and Hardy and the ability to produce cartoons, again, the image of Laurel and Hardy versus, now Larry Harmon never owned all their incredible work that they did with the Hal Roach Studios and 20th Century Fox, but it was all settled in the end, I'm sure. So that's why you have a lot of the memorabilia that was put out based on the cartoon series. And I just adored the cartoon series and the likeness of Laurel and Hardy. Now, we started our Playhouse episode with what was created as a secondary Laurel and Hardy theme. Now, the original theme is the Cuckoo Song that is played at the beginning of all the Hal Roach shorts and their feature films. Now, Larry Harmon helped create the One Together is Two song. Now, yes, it's very similar, but again, in those days, that was fine. So it's not actually the Laurel and Hardy theme, but it's the secondary Laurel and Hardy theme. And I always liked One Together is Two. That's a perfect concept for them. So we're going to show you some wonderful items. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them today in today's Playhouse episode, but I thought we'd show you some of our favorites. Now, these are, it's very nice. Now, these are little music areas. We're going to demonstrate with Ollie in a minute. But he's porcelain. So these are very breakable. The hands, these, sure of the company, but I've had these at least the late 1970s. Now, I'm going to play a musical at the same time. So we're going to wind him up. And we're going to see if Playhouse members see what's the affiliation with the Beatles. Now listen closely. Shout it out, Playhouse members, if you know this song. It's Beatles related. This is Those Were the Days, which we know was produced by Paul McCartney in 1968 as part of Apple's First Four for Mary Hopkin. This was a #1 hit. Those Were the Days. All right, so I thought that was charming. I hadn't wound him up in about 35 years as we were setting up this Playhouse episode. Right, we'll see how long Ollie plays Those Were the Days, but it's pleasant. So, over here are Laurel and Hardy ventriloquist dolls. Now, they've been around again for a very long time as well. Now, these were done, it says here by, yes, this is a Goldberger doll. Goldberger Manufacturing, Johnson Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. You can see these are quite large. And I want to thank my Aunt Audrey, who's in Georgia right now, because I believe my Aunt Audrey gifted me these on my 16th birthday. So their mounts will move. This here. Right? The little string, they don't work too well anymore. But their mounts do move as a little ventriloquist doll. Well, Stanley. Ollie. Yeah, okay. I won't irritate Playhouse members with that too long. But, all right, and then we have a little watch here. See, we want to show there's not as much Laurel and Hardy collectible items that resemble them from their feature films versus all the cartoon stuff that, again, Larry Harmon was responsible for from about 1962 on, after, again, he acquired the rights to their likeness. The cartoon began in about 1965. But this is a nice watch. I know next on our Laurel and Hardy journey, oh, I love these so much. Now, my mom gave me these probably on my 13th birthday. Everything was a birthday gift. Because, again, we got to remember that, well, you know, everyone didn't make as much money. Everyone always had money struggles. But this is a bank. And how much I love the depiction of the Laurel and Hardy cartoon characters that Hanna-Barbera and Larry Harmon put together. Now, these are semi-relatively common, but not the large size. They also made this exact figure in about an 8-inch size. The same thing, made out of this plastic. All right, but Playhouse never required those because we didn't need, believe it or not, duplicates of the same bank when we had the large size that we loved so much. Now this came out in later on, 1999. Everything is stamped Larry Harmon, but this was part of the, I guess, the Beanie Baby craze. So they made some Laurel and Hardy beanbag collectibles by Highlight Stars. But they're cute because, again, it's Laurel and Hardy as depicted from their movies. Over here, yeah, a record album, of course, of the famous Babes in Toyland. And we're going to talk about how people first got exposed to Laurel and Hardy as well as our Playhouse episode continues. Now, these are Christopher Radko ornaments. Now again, so this is based on the same cartoon likeness, of course, but they follow the banks. These are beautiful. Again, he does beautiful hand-blown ornaments. These are 1996. Very nice. They got little sparkles on them. I'm sure our camera is picking them up beautifully. So nice. And then these are another one of my, of course I love everything here in the Playhouse, right? But these are another ones that I really love. These are about 15, 16 inches of the famous pear. This stuff is just drying up in the market. You really don't see this stuff, to be honest with you, at collectible shows. Perhaps probably on eBay. But generally, like, you can only pick up Stan somewhere or Ollie, but not everything in pairs. Now, these go together. Now, these are Dakin figures, actually. But these are like top-of-the-line Dakin figures. Because normally, you know, if you see, Playhouse has a lot of Dakin figures of the Warner Brothers characters. And they're just painted without their clothing. But these are actual Dakin figures. It says here, Laurel and Hardy. Dakin and Company from San Francisco. Lots of fun. Again, I remember that these also were a birthday present from my mom. I guess I was an easy thing to gift a child to. Just give me a Beatle thing or Laurel and Hardy for Christmas or holidays or my birthday, and I was quite happy. This is another. This is a great ornament. This is from the Carlton Company. A little 4 or 5 inch ornament, but and I like that because again it depicts Laurel and Hardy as they were wrapped around the Christmas lights, and of course them. They were always working in some type of shop, so they always have this type of clothing on, and a lot of their Hal Roach shorts. I believe Busy Bodies was one of them, where definitely were wearing that clothing. And then we got, now this is gorgeous. Now I picked this up actually in Las Vegas. People will know this style immediately. This is a Ron Lee. And he does these type of, this is very hard. This is like marble. It's always on a very heavy marble base. This is a beautiful depiction. One of my jaunts, this is 1989, but it was put out, and that's about the time that I was going to the West Coast a lot. Let's see what it says here. Again, it's Larry Harmon trademark, copyright 1988. All right, we'll let the Playhouse. Now, if you buy something, again, I wasn't full of money. I don't want to ever be braggish or anything, but if you buy something in a, this was bought, I believe, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. So, but I had never seen it before, and it's limited. And you know, when you see something that you really want, you're not gonna, and there's no eBay again at this point, so you got to buy it when you see it. So I remember I thought about this a lot. I'm being honest with our Playhouse viewers, but I paid. There it is. I didn't know this was on here. This was $177.99. So for a collectible, but I'm so happy that I did get it. And then several years later, I got to meet Ron Lee. Yeah, 1994. So 5 years later, he was doing an appearance. He used to have stores, so he signed it there. Best wishes from Ron Lee. And yeah, this is number 1240 of 2,500 pieces. But I've never seen another one again in person. Now here are the Lakeside Bendies. People love the Bendies. Lakeside made so many Bendies throughout the years. I guess one of the most popular ones was, of course, Lakeside did Gumby. And there's, of course, Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse Bendies. Now, I had this one first. I know I got this one in about 1974 or so. And Stan was always just alone without his partner. Remember, no eBay, no way to find him. You just had to find him. So it took about 20 years for me to match up Oliver Hardy, Lakeside, to the proper Stanley, because there were other ones. You see, well, this Bendy does not go with this Ollie. So the Playhouse is still without the Ollie that goes with this Stanley. These are really fun. Based on the cartoon series. These are 1972. Finger Puppets. Do that. Peace and Love. From Laurel and Hardy. Yeah. Peace and love, Ollie. Well, thank you, Stanley. All right. And we have some from Edu Cards. Edu Cards from, they made so many cards from that period. always in this style box. 1972, Laurel and Hardy cards. That's not a fun item. Everyone had one of these at one time or another. And I actually believe, Mikey Arugula, if you have one, there's a Beatle one. I think based with the Beatle cartoons or something. Very hard to find. Or maybe Frank, Mr. Sticker Mania, you have that. But this is a puzzle game where you slide the pieces of puzzle and you have to figure out, usually, you know, all the pieces, they don't come out. This is kind of like an easier Rubik's Cube before its day, where you just slide and put the things. But it gives you pictures of what's possible and what's not possible. Because, see, you can put somebody else's head on the body and things like that. But once the Playhouse figured out how to do it, we never moved it again. And usually this comes off the card because, again, these items are supposed to be played with. So it's nice that this stuck on there for all those years, because I know I got this originally, again, in the early 1970s. And we've shown here's the comic books. Now, this is the DC Laurel and Hardy comic book. They had many, actually, DC, Dell, and Gold Key all did Laurel and Hardy comic books. I don't think the DC one went past #1, which is here, August. And I know this is the first time that I had a Laurel and Hardy comic. And then we have, I don't have any Gold Keys, but we have the Dell comic books as well. Just great artwork. Now we're going to be doing a Playhouse episode on all type of comic books in the future, I promise. Now, we love Transagram here at the Playhouse because they made so many great board games. Of course, here's the Laurel and Hardy game, Monkey Business. The board, it's okay, but the box is just incredible. But Transagram, a lot of rare items, like the Flintstone bowling set, which I know we have in the Playhouse, if you look closely behind us on the shelves. Now, we have our little squeeze toys. Okay, now, the hats are supposed to go up. Now, Stan lost his voice, but his hat still will go up. Now, here we go, see? So when you press in Stan, his little derby hat goes up. They almost could be dog toys, but I couldn't see that it was one of them. I think it was really one of these. In fact, I think I already know, I believe Stan Laurel owned one of these in his apartment. And that reminds me of a fast story, if I may. It was amazing that when Stan Laurel, he lived in an apartment during the last years of his life. It could have been Santa Monica, I'm not sure. But if you wrote to Stan Laurel, he was in the phone book from like 1957 after Oliver passed to Stan's passing. You could look up Stan Laurel in the phone book. He'd write back to you. He wrote back to every person that wrote to him. And if you were fortunate enough, that we've talked about before, Dick Van Dyke, extremely influenced by Stan Laurel all his life, betrayed him many times. Dick got to meet Stan Laurel from that he found him in the phone book and couldn't believe it. And Stan invited Dick Van Dyke over, and they were friends till, again, Stan's passing. So now over here, we've got our lovely magazine, but let's talk about how most viewers, or at least myself, were in the New York metropolitan area, but it was pretty much the same for everyone. Got to first see Laurel and Hardy, besides, of course, being able to see their pictures in the theaters originally, but again, their output was mainly in the 1930s, 1940s, through the early 1950s, ending it with A Tall K is Known, which is in the public domain, their last film. Now, I was exposed to Laurel and Hardy in the metropolitan area from WNEW, Channel 5, Metro Media Television, and they had the rights to Laurel and Hardy shorts and feature films from about 1965, 66 to early 1971, 72. Now, that was my early exposure to Laurel and Hardy, watching him on my local independent Channel 5. Now, if you were in the New York area from the 1950s through the early 1960s, when the Laurel and Hardy shorts and theatricals were made available for television, in the New York area, most people saw them then on WPIX Channel 11. Here's all their little logos, which is fun. It's on this mug of what it would have looked like if you were watching WPIX Channel 11. And even if you're not from the New York area, these channels have become very famous. We just put our 4:30 movie mug out here because we wanted an excuse to show it. We love the 4:30 movie. And in Los Angeles, of course, it was known as the 3:30 movie. And they actually had the same opening, but instead of the 4:30 movie dropping down, it said the 3:30 movie, which is very odd to see due to the time changes. But I digress. Now, one thing that had never changed, and we showed the album before, March of the Wooden Soldiers, or also the original title, Babes in Toyland, which is always a holiday tradition on television on Thanksgiving morning and on Christmas morning. That always remained on WPIX since they acquired the rights to it in the late 1950s. And they still play it on Thanksgiving to this day. So that's how I got exposed to Laurel and Hardy. Back to our magazine, which again was the first exposure for me in print about Laurel and Hardy collectibles. So you actually see, here's the banks that we just saw a few minutes ago. And here's that sheet set I was talking about. Over here, this was great. In the middle early 1970s, we've shown this once on the Playhouse on our Trash to Treasure episode. This is a box of Junior Mints that had a Laurel and Hardy promotion on it. It was a contest on the back. Now, on each one of the boxes, there was a different photo. It wasn't the same photo of Laurel and Hardy. Now, of course, this picture, I know from my head, is a depiction from the movie Swiss Miss. I love all those movies. Bohemian Girl, Swiss Miss, Our Relations, some Saps at Sea. Oh, there's so many. But so the idea was that you had to write a caption for the photo. And if you sent in your caption, you won $5. And again, trust me, in 1973, that was quite a lot of money if Junior Mints put your caption on the box eventually. Now, this person won $5 for putting "We ate the whole thing" next to this picture from Swiss Miss. But I always loved Junior Mints, but I love that. I got all these boxes, and I cut out, this is the only box I have originally, cut out all the pictures. They're in a scrapbook somewhere. And we have our Laurel and Hardy little cartoon shot glasses. I don't think these were not, this is etched in. These were not authorized. That was just a impulse purchase. Because we have, now these are very popular. The cigar figures, statues. And of course the Beatles have them as well. And they're very difficult to find, those Beatle ones though. Especially in this large size. And we don't talk about price on the Playhouse, but if you ever see any Beatle cigar statue or figures, grab it at a reasonable price. But this is the Stan and Ollie. Lots of fun. Usually saw them in cigar shops or just other stores. They used to just have them, not department stores, but more stores that were direct in bars. Now here's the boys in their Willie Jeep, I believe. Now they've made, this is really constructed well. I'm going to show you now. This is, yes, in their Willie Jeep. And this is made by Gate, which I believe is a popular, very nice company for making these type of vehicles. But you see, if you move the steering wheel moves, of course, and the tires move as well. See, this is very heavy. Again, I know this company must be very famous for making these type of vehicles. Gate. Now we have our Celebra Ducks. These are silly items. Stanley, I'd rather be in your bathtub than mine. It says, I've always gotten along swell with myself. They're just colorful. Let's see what Ollie says on here. The same thing. Oh, now here's another fine mess you've got me into, Stanley. It's a nice, wacky depiction. Something, again, different. It's what I usually like and want to collect. Very rare. I keep saying that, and I apologize. This is the Oliver Hardy Halloween costume. Now, I actually wore this when I was about 11 or 12. Somewhere in the Playhouse archives, there is a photo of me wearing this. But I never saw the Stanley one. There had to be one. But only picked up Ollie at the time. And down here, we have our liquor decanters here. There it is. Goes up there. Very nice. Another liquor decanter. Now, I want to say a special remembrance to Danny Botcher. He was an amazing, talented musician, and from the area, very sweet man. And he had the largest Laurel and Hardy collection that anyone ever had. He owned like their wardrobe and stuff. But if you're into Laurel and Hardy collectibles, everything that I just showed you is in this book. The late Danny Botcher. Usually we lost him too soon. But this is a beautiful book, and it's still available. This is a new book from Schiffer, Collecting Laurel and Hardy. Highly, highly recommended. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our trek into Laurel and Hardy, the boys. And for now, the Playhouse is closed. Thanks, Joe Friday.
Can you imagine on a day like this?